with danger and with daring rights. To the hilt we take you there, where courage meets a throat laid.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're taking you on quite an extraordinary journey.
We really are.
Into the life of Stan Marye. Now, he was a sword swallower back in the mid-20th century, and his story is just, well, it's as sharp and surprising as the things he swallowed.
Exactly, and we're aiming to go beyond just the surface level here.
Right. We want to understand what drove someone like him.
And we've got some great source material. We've looked into Stan Marye's own chapter in the book To The Hilt, a sword swallower's history of sword swallowing.
Okay.
And also the Sword Swallowers Association International website. It's a real treasure trove. You know, they've got their Hall of Fame there, lots of info.
Fantastic. So the goal today is really to get you, the listener, quickly up to speed on this really fascinating guy and the whole world he lived in.
That's the plan.
Okay, so let's start at the beginning. How does anyone even get into sword swallowing? It seems so specific. For Stan Marye, the spark, believe it or not, came from Reader's Digest.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. He was, 14?
Mm-hmm.
And he read a condensed version of Daniel Mannix's book, Step Right Up.
And Reader's Digest. Wow.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is how just, a little piece in a magazine could kickstart such an unusual and, let's be honest, a pretty dangerous path.
It wasn't just a passing fancy then.
No, not at all. Young Stanley Andrew Marye, his fascination was apparently so intense. There's this story about him singeing his eyebrows and burning the carpet.
Seriously? Just from reading about it?
Apparently. Gives you a sense of the passion, maybe the intensity involved right from the start.
Talk about an explosive reaction.
Yeah.
And that was just the beginning, right? Because by 16, this is 1954, he actually runs away from home.
He did. Left Wellsville, New York, headed down to Florida to join Glades Amusements.
16 years old. That takes some serious nerve.
It really does. And down there in those early days, he meets this really memorable character, Tiny Cowan.
Tiny Cowan.
Yeah, reportedly a 741-pound man who kind of became an unlikely mentor figure for him. Cowan gave Marye his first real training in the sideshow world, sort of building on that initial spark he got from the book.
So, okay, before he even thought about swallowing steel, what was he learning? What were his first acts?
Well, he started with the classic sideshow stuff. Fire eating was one of the first things.
Right.
And it was pretty basic: kit cotton, a coat hanger, acetone.
A coat hanger again.
Yeah, seems to be a recurring theme. He also learned things like dancing on glass, walking on swords, lying on a bed of nails, and even contortionism.
Mm-hmm.
Interestingly, he apparently linked his flexibility back to having rheumatoid arthritis and rheumatic fever as a kid.
Huh.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite a range of skills to pick up. So when did the sword actually become the main focus?
Well, that big moment seems to have been in 1957.
Yeah.
He was at the Arizona State Fair working for a woman named Helen Golden.
Okay.
And that's when he saw Don Ward, a proper sword swallower. And Marye didn't just watch. He apparently studied Ward's technique really closely and even asked him for advice.
So it was a combination then. The book got him interested, but then seeing it live and getting mentorship, that sealed the deal.
Exactly. He took what he remembered from Mannix's book, added Ward's practical tips, and he even apparently studied Gray's Anatomy.
Gray's Anatomy, the medical book.
Yeah, to understand, the throat, the esophagus, all the internal stuff. And then he started practicing with a coat hanger.
Okay, the coat hanger again.
Yeah.
That sounds both, resourceful and kind of terrifying.
It does, doesn't it? And Marye himself apparently called that learning phase trial and error, mainly error.
I bet.
But he stuck with it. And by 1958, he'd actually done it. He successfully swallowed a sword. It really says a lot about his dedication.
Absolutely. So 1958, he's officially a sword swallower. What did his career look like then? Where was he working?
He jumped right in. In 58 alone, he worked for Kitty Kelly. That was on the James E. Stratt Skelly Sutton show.
Yeah.
Then he joined the big one, Royal American Shows. He apparently took over after another sword swallower, Esteline Pike, left.
Wow. Royal American Shows. That's quite a start on the circuit. What about the next few years?
Oh, it was a total whirlwind, constant travel, performing all over. 1959, he worked for Pete Cortez.
Okay.
And get this, he actually appeared on TV, Art Linkletter's House Party.
No way.
Yeah, broadcast live from the Arizona State Fair. It was Election Day, 1959. He is on with a couple of other sideshow performers.
That's amazing exposure back then.
Definitely. Same year, 59, he also worked with the legends Ward Hall and Harry Leonard at a fair in Indiana. And with Vantine and Lee at a street fair down in El Paso, Texas, he was really racking up the experience.
So it sounds like he was learning, constantly adapting.
For sure. 1960, he starts with Noel Lester's Mermaid Illusion show, back on the James E. Straits show.
A mermaid illusion, okay.
Then he joined up with Jerry Lipko and worked alongside Vicky Pope. She was billed as the Fat Lady Sword Swallower.
Right, I've heard of her. Did she actually swallow swords too?
She did. Both of them did. They apparently even both swallowed Mary's big 1860 cavalry saber. And then that same year, 1960, he gets married in Whitney Point, New York. But he keeps working the carnivals with Lipko. Ended the year working for Bill Chalkus down in Jacksonville.
So getting married didn't mean settling down in one place for him? What about in 1961? Still going strong?
Oh, yeah. 1961, he's working with Roby Del Mar in Central Florida, then heads to Texas with Gary Hearn, and after that, joins Johnny Howard on the R.B. Thomas shows. It was just, nonstop, the rhythm of that life.
Now, okay, he's known as a sword swallower, but I read somewhere that he had some, let's say, unique specialties, things other than swords.
Yes, he absolutely did.
Yeah.
For a few years, Stan Marye actually swallowed a neon tube.
A neon tube, like a lit one.
Yes. Think about that. The precision, the sheer guts required.
I can't even imagine. Did that last long?
Well, there was an incident in 1961 at the Corn Palace in Mitchell, South Dakota. It kind of put an end to the neon tube act.
Oh, no. What happened? What went wrong?
Well, apparently it was a free show, right? And the extension cord for the transformer wasn't quite long enough. So he had to kneel down to actually swallow the tube. And as he did, the light went out.
Oh, wow. Inside him.
That was his immediate fear. He thought it had broken inside his throat. Huge panic, understandably.
I would think so.
Thankfully, it hadn't broken. The cord had just, come loose from the transformer. But that scare, that moment of thinking it broke inside him, that was enough. He never swallowed the neon tube again after that.
I don't blame him one bit. That's terrifying. And it seems like this willingness to swallow these really unusual objects led to this kind of ironic reputation he had, like the only sword swallower who didn't swallow a sword.
Exactly. That's what people started saying because his act featured all this other stuff, and he kind of leaned into it seems.
So what else besides the neon tube?
Oh, all sorts. The bent coat hanger, of course. A 20-inch stove poker.
20 inches.
Yep. A 15-inch army serving spoon, a bayonet with a 16-inch blade, a 22-inch barbecue skewer, and then finally he did swallow a proper sword, a 25-inch saber. But yeah, the weird stuff got him noticed.
He really messed with audience expectations.
Yeah.
What was his thinking behind using all those different objects? Was it just novelty?
Well, it seems it was pretty clever, actually. He wanted to combat the skepticism.
Yeah.
People always thought, oh, it's a trick sword. The blade retracts.
Right, the classic explanation.
So by swallowing these solid everyday things, a poker, a spoon, things people knew weren't collapsible, he was proving it was real. He even had this running joke, apparently, about having a double esophagus.
That's good showmanship.
Totally.
Wow.
It was all part of selling the act, making it believable because it was unbelievable objects.
And he had some specific routines, too, didn't he? Like the hot sandwich.
Yes, the hot sandwich. That involved two swords, right?
Okay.
And he'd balance a lit cigarette between the blades.
Okay.
And then he'd swallow the swords, pull them out, and just casually take a puff from the still lit cigarette.
That's quite the visual. Definitely memorable.
Very theatrical.
And what about the sword sandwich? That sounds intense.
It really was. He started out swallowing up to 5 swords all at once.
5. Simultaneously.
Yeah. But that led to an injury in 1962. Happened in Cadiz, Kentucky, while he was doing the 5 sword swallow.
Oh, no. Serious?
Enough to make him rethink it. After that close call, he apparently scaled it back to 3 swords. He'd put a wide broadsword in the middle with 2 narrower ones on either side. Still incredibly dangerous. Still a spectacle.
5 swords. No wonder that reporter called him an omnivorous gent who downed broadswords like they were oysters. That quote really sticks.
It paints a picture, doesn't it? But, it wasn't all glamour. He talked about practical problems, too.
Like what?
Like getting laryngitis all the time. Probably because there often wasn't a proper PA system, right? So he'd have to shout over the crowd noise constantly.
Yeah, that would wreck your voice.
And he mentioned being underweight. He had that great quip, there are no calories in a stove poker.
It really grounds it, doesn't it? Highlights the less glamorous side, the physical toll of that life.
Absolutely. It gives you a feel for the challenging conditions they often worked under.
So after all that intensity, he actually took a break, right? Joined the Navy.
That's right. After about 4 years deep in that circuit, he stepped away and enlisted in the U.S. Navy. But interestingly, the performer didn't completely disappear.
Oh,
No, even in the Navy, he reportedly still performed sometimes, swallowing swords to entertain the other recruits.
you just can't keep a good performer down, I guess. What happened after the Navy? Did he go back to the sideshows?
He did. He returned to civilian life, and yeah, maybe it was inevitable he found his way back to the circuit.
Back to the life he knew.
Seems like it. He worked again with many of the big names, James E. Straits, Royal American shows, King Brothers Circus, Clyde Beatty Colebro's, Circus, Ward Hall, and Harry Leonard again. That world clearly had a strong pull.
It really sounds like a tight-knit, if unconventional,
Yeah.
community. Hard to leave behind completely.
It often is, yeah. And he reconnected professionally with Lady Vicky Pope, the fat lady sword swallower, while working for Jerry Lipko again. And mirroring his earlier life, he met another woman on the circuit. She wasn't a performer, but she became his wife. They traveled together.
So he wasn't always solo.
No, and he wasn't just performing either. He became a real jack of all trades. He worked as an outside talker.
The person hyping the show outside.
Exactly, drumming up business, selling tickets. He ran concessions sometimes and even helped with the really physical work, like rigging the equipment, setting up the tents. A true all-rounder.
He sounds incredibly versatile,
Yeah.
essential to keeping a show running.
Right.
What about his time with King Brothers Circus specifically?
He was with King Brothers for a good stretch, from 62 to 65. And during that period, he even did a run with the Kelly Miller Brothers Circus down in Jamaica.
Jamaica.
Yeah, late 62 into early 63. And the sources, like that newspaper article, really emphasized the range of stuff he was swallowing then, including one particularly long 27.5-inch parade sword.
That's long. And the hot sandwich, the multiple swords, still part of the act then.
Yep, those signature routines were still going strong.
Mm-hmm.
And something else happened around then. In 1965, back in Binghamton, he got to see another performer, Count Desmond, swallow his first sword.
Oh, wow. Seeing the next generation start out.
Must have been quite a moment, like passing the torch, maybe? A very sharp torch.
Definitely. But then didn't he take another break from performing after that?
He did, yeah. In 1965, he stepped away again, tried a more conventional job for a bit, construction work.
Trying a different life.
Seems like it, but, well, you know the pattern by now. The lure of the show was too strong. He was back by 1968 working with a tented theater up in Bridgeport, Connecticut.
The stage just kept calling him back. Couldn't stay away for long. So what did the later part of his career look like? Was he still full-time?
It seems it was more sporadic after that. Over the next couple of decades, he took on various gigs here and there, Bridgeport, and then there was this really fascinating stretch starting in 1976.
Oh, yeah.
He spent 20 months working as the tent manager for Disney's circus down in Johannesburg, South Africa.
Disney's circus.
Yeah.
In South Africa. From sword swallower to tent manager for Disney? That's quite a shift.
Isn't it? It really shows his adaptability, his resourcefulness. He knew the circus world inside out, from performing to management.
Clearly. And there's that almost unbelievable story involving Kool and the gang.
Oh, right, yes. In 1987, the story goes, he might have earned the unique distinction of being the only person ever to swallow a coat hanger for the crew of Kool and the Gang.
You can't make this stuff up.
Right. It just sounds like he never lost that spark, that ability to surprise people, even off stage. And eventually, he did settle back near his roots, returning to Binghamton, New York in 1972.
Wow. So from reading Reader's Digest as a kid to performing impromptu coat hanger swallowing for 80s funk bands, it really was an extraordinary, kind of unbelievable life.
Absolutely. Stan Marye's story, it just gives you such a compelling look into this really demanding, unique world of the sideshows, and the incredible dedication it took to master something so unusual, so potentially lethal.
It really makes you appreciate the skill, the bravery involved.
Definitely.
It really does. And if you, listening now, are intrigued and want to dig deeper into Stan Marye's life or just the history of sword swallowing in general, you should definitely check out the sources we used.
Yeah, the Sword Swallowers Association International, SSAI, their website is swordswallow.com. They have the Sword Swallowers Hall of Fame there, and also their To The Hilt podcasts.
Great resource.
Yeah.
And there's the book too, right?
Yes, To The Hilt, A Sword Swallower's History of Sword Swallowing. It's co-authored by Dan Meyer and Mark Hartzman. You can find it pretty easily online. Places like Amazon, Barnes & Noble.
Excellent. Definitely worth checking out.
It really is. You know, this whole deep dive into Stan Marye's life, it just highlights these hidden histories, right? These incredible skills that exist just outside the mainstream spotlight.
That's a great point.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other seemingly unbelievable professions or skills throughout history have these kinds of stories? Stories of intense dedication, unique mastery, just waiting for someone to uncover them.
To the hilt with every breath, dancing close to life and death. Stories written deep in flesh, legends born in every test. Through history's winding path, crafted with an iron grasp. Voices from a world gone past, echo in the feet they clasp.